Kombat is the latest adaptation of the video game franchise of Mortal Kombat. This one is thankfully not directed or has anything to do with Paul W.S. Anderson, thank God for that. And of course this movie is about a group of people that have a dragon tattoo on them, which marks that they have been chosen to defend Earth against the villainous forces of Shang Tsung, who is trying to take over the world. But before they can even get to a tournament that would decide this, Shang Tsung is trying to play behind the scenes drama and kill people off before then so he can just declare victory. So they can't have that. It's time for Mortal Kombat. Face them all down. Let's go. People complaining that there's no tournament in this, but there might as well have been one. You know, like, they do everything but say, this is a tournament. People are dumb. I went into this movie with weird expectations because I was skeptical because it's a video game movie and video game movies have generally pretty much disappointed. I kind of want to give Sonic the Hedgehog another chance because even though I know in my review I listed out everything that I had wrong with it, I had a lot of issues with that movie, but for some reason I kind of have this weird fondness of like, that was a cute, fun movie though, you know, so maybe I'll give Sonic another chance someday, but I feel like maybe the only good video game adaptation we have is Angry Birds 2. I'm honestly forgetting, like, if there's any other one. So beforehand, it's like, okay, video game adaptation expectations in check, but it can't be any worse than the other two movies that came before, you know what I mean? Because Annihilation, everything has been said about that movie, but a lot of people regard that first Mortal Kombat as like, this is the best video game movie there is, and even as a kid, I was like, this is kind of awful. And I rewatched it a couple days ago before seeing this new one, and I was like, okay, it's not awful. Kid me was very harsh, but it is still just kind of okay in the middle, not very good. This is also a first-time feature film director. He previously directed a bunch of commercials that you might have seen. He's won a lot of awards for that, and this is his first feature film, so that's okay. Keep my expectations in check, first-time director, but the trailer did look promising. It looked like it had everything that a Mortal Kombat movie should have. It looked like it was going to have all of the video game references that were needed to make this movie as good as possible, so I was going in hoping for the best, but also kind of wary, and yeah, is it a good movie? I'm not really sure, because there are a lot of problems with this movie, but I can guarantee that I actually did have a lot of fun during a lot of it. This is going to be a weird review because I feel like there's a lot of reasons I'm about to lay out that make this kind of like a bad movie. Like, if I'm talking just technical, and whenever I grade a movie, it's off of technical reasons. I don't really grade off of like emotion or feeling. But I honestly, there's a lot of fun to be had with the action sequences in this. I think Simon McQuaid, for a first-time director, did a really great job here. I know a lot of people are complaining about the editing, but really there's only like two parts where the editing kind of bothered me when it came to the action sequences. One where they're kind of bouncing between one scene and then another, and it was like, oh, can you focus a bit? It feels a little incomprehensible, it's hard to track, but then that kind of went away after a while. And then there's one where it felt like a lot of like important action moments were kind of edited in the style of a montage, so not as impactful as it could, but other than that, the action in this movie is very fun. There's one kill in this movie that made me want to stand up in my seat and go, holy shit, I could not believe what I was seeing. I don't want to be like exaggeratory or anything and say like it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen in a movie, but god damn it, it's so cool. It's honestly fucking fantastic what they were able to do. The CGI also, they use CGI blood obviously, which I think just works to this movie's benefit because it's messy, it's bloody everywhere, but it adds to that Mortal Kombat style. I think they blended it in with live action really well. A lot of other visual effects too, like the CGI arms that Jax has, Goro when he shows up. I think they really did some great work on this movie. Like Benjamin Wallfish's score for this movie, I think he captured a really great vibe for this Mortal Kombat movie, taking that original theme and kind of modernizing it, but still kind of keeping in line with like what that original theme is supposed to do. I think he did a fantastic job on this movie. And because there are a lot of action sequences in this movie, I can say that throughout I was honestly thoroughly entertained and I wasn't really bothered a lot by them specifically. Even the way this movie opens up, I was like, this isn't even just like a good Mortal Kombat opening, this is a good opening for any blockbuster movie. It's honestly, if I can go a step further, great, dare I say. It opens up with like obviously Mortal Kombat fighting, a little bit more tame than what we get later on in the movie, but it's Mortal Kombat fighting, like the hyper violence is right there, but it's also kind of grounded and it's kind of haunting and dark at the same time. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but it lays down the history between the characters of Sub-Zero and Scorpion before they become those two things, and it's really impressive what they were able to do. Honestly, it was fantastic. It painted a good picture for what the rest of the movie was. I was like, if this is it, then I'm all in. And then it cuts to Cole, and then certain things start to become apparent, like, oh, okay, it's not gonna be perfect. Louis Tan plays Cole, and I'm not saying he was bad in this movie. In fact, there's moments where I'm like, I can see where this performance could work. I can see where a new character, totally new from Mortal Kombat, coming in and holding the audience's hand, so to speak, to introduce them to certain things, could be of value. And I think there's a couple times where I'm like, the performance is right, but it's just, the character himself is just really boring to me. Like, oh, he used to be a good fighter and now he's not, and he's got a wife and kid. All right, time to go on this adventure. And it's like, I don't really have a bond with him yet. I don't relate to him. I don't really care about his struggles, internal struggles, external struggles, anything like that. He's just a guy to me. And now he's my guide throughout the rest of the movie. And I wish we had someone a bit more interesting, like Kano. Kano is a scene stealer in this. I thought he was absolutely perfect in this movie. His jokes are great. The actor Josh Lawson pulls them off expertly well. He bounces off of the rest of the cast extremely well too. He's just a character that he's a scumbag, right? He's not the character you're supposed to like. Like, he's a comedic relief, but he's kind of like a dickhead. But he's the kind of character who is like, because of his humor, he's pointing out like, this seems ridiculous, like what the fuck is up with this? He's the kind of character where the stuff he's saying, reacting to this stuff, is the kind of things that you as an audience member would probably be thinking or saying too, you know? So that makes him a little bit more, it makes him a little more relatable despite him being an absolute dickhead in the movie. Even Jax, when he enters the movie played by Mehcad Brooks, it's like, okay, there's a little bit of a flair here. There's something that I like, a part of his personality that I'm kind of enjoying. And even as the movie goes on, even though he doesn't have like the total spotlight, he definitely has a chance to shine and like fulfill a character arc. And I was like, I enjoy this character, and I maybe wish he was more of a lead too. Cole just unfortunately did not live up to that for me, especially like his family. Like, I did not care for them either whenever they're in peril. Like, nah, I could care less about that. If you made me care, then sure, but you did not. It's like they hopscotch through like making you actually care about this stuff. And even like when Sonya Blade is introduced, it's one of those, like, as soon as she's on the scene, she's like an exposition mouthpiece. Like, let me explain everything real quick. And like, even like throughout the rest of the movie, there's not really a moment where I thought of her as like an actual character. Just like, oh, she's here too. Like, she's one of those characters, unfortunately, which is a bummer because she does have an interesting setup, which is she doesn't have one of the dragon marks. She only knows about this stuff because her friend Jax got it. She defeated someone and got the mark. And she learned stuff through him. But throughout the movie, I was just like, I'm not really, you and Cole, you're the ones that are kind of sticking out as far as characters that I'm not that interested in. And also, I know exactly where your plot is going to go. I know exactly how it's going to end up. So there's no fun in seeing it unfold. Like, even if you can like predict like, okay, this is something that will probably happen to this character later on because they're very obviously establishing it. If you like the characters enough, you'll be like, I'm having a blast seeing it unfold. I don't care if it's cliche. I don't care if it's predictable. In this case, it was just like, can we just move on? You know what I mean? I'm not faulting any of the actors for sure, because there are definitely some lines of dialogue here that are a little corny, a little cheesy, that took me out of it. Like, okay, that's a little cornball. But I'm not faulting any of the actors because they definitely do try their best, and a lot of them are pretty good. I can't really think of any weak performances save for a couple, but it really is at a certain point just the writing, because even characters that I liked, like Kano or Jax, like they introduce them fairly quickly before you really get a chance to actually get to understand how they've come to this point in life. Like, even Kano's introduction is just Sonya going like, oh yeah, we were looking for someone and found him instead, being a murderer, so we brought him here, and that's it. Like, you get like the most vague kind of understanding of how he's involved with everything going on. When Liu Kang shows up, played by Ludi Lin, who was in Power Rangers, the most recent one, who he's really good in that. I wanted to like him because he comes up with like sunset backdrop, a great cinematography moment, and I was like, okay, he's leading them to the place they need to. I'm really hoping I like this guy because I liked him in other stuff. And unfortunately, he kind of is also just like, I'm here to teach you things about how to get your Mortal Kombat powers, and also here's my cousin, Kung Lao. And then they just kind of like, they might as well not be different characters because they're doing roughly the same exact thing. And there comes a point in the movie where you kind of have to care about this dynamic. You have to care about these people more than just like teachers to the main characters. You had to care about them as people. So when a certain beat happens, I unfortunately didn't really feel much. I was just kind of like, oh, well, that's a bummer, but I guess this stuff kind of happens in Mortal Kombat, you know what I'm saying? I didn't really feel much. But as weak as like that character development is, I prefer that over Raiden and Shang Tsung in this. Raiden, first of all, like, I have problems with like Raiden in the original Mortal Kombat because the performance is really hokey and kind of cheesy, but you get a sense that Raiden cares about these fighters. He wants to help them. And this one, Raiden is like the emotionally unavailable stepfather that you never want. And that's him in this movie. And it was like, it's a little boring. Like, even though the other guy in 95 was very, very cheesy, it's a little memorable. And in this, it was just kind of like, I am Raiden, and my eyes are glowing white because, hey, I'm Raiden, man. And, yeah, that's about it. And then you have Shang Tsung, who I don't really care for in the original Mortal Kombat movie either. But in this, like, it's the same kind of thing. Like, I'm just the evil bad guy, all of my minions are here, and we're, doing some evil stuff. We want Earth. I think if you're not gonna do anything else with the character, like add anything, then the villain just kind of ends up being generic Shang Tsung in this case. And that's exactly what happened here. I also don't really understand the logistics of the cheating that they're trying to do. Like, the movie is about them, like, picking off fighters before the tournament. But it's weird because at one point Shang Tsung's like, the gods aren't even paying attention up there. I can do whatever. And it's like, okay, I guess that makes sense. Or does it? Like, he's sending soldiers that are like directly kind of tied to him. Like, there's no attempt to like cover up or do anything like that. And even at one point he just kind of drops the like, I'm not even going to show up on the battlefield stuff, and shows up later and basically just says, I'm going to kill your fighters before the tournament and declare victory. And it's like, what is this guy's deal? Like, what's his plan exactly? This is not... I feel like if you're gonna like announce some declaration like this, surely this will be noticed by the gods, or Raiden will mention it to the gods. Who's in contact with the gods? Is anyone? No? I don't know. It was a little unclear. Without spoiling anything, also, they end the movie in a cliffhanger kind of way. It's not a cliffhanger in the same vein as like the 95 Mortal Kombat, which is literally just like, I'm an evil bad guy and I'm gonna stop you. And everyone's like, oh yeah? Well, wait till the next movie, dude. And then it ends. It's not anything like that, but it is like a tease for like, oh, this is coming in the next movie. You better get ready. And it's like, it's the kind of ending that I wouldn't mind normally, but you didn't give us a satisfying send-off to any of the characters that we had here. And it just kind of further supports the fact that the characters aren't really treated with the utmost attention that they so deserve, because they ended off like teasing something that should maybe excite fans, like, oh, this is coming, get ready, it's gonna totally outshine the other characters that we have here that you probably didn't even care about to begin with. If there is a sequel to this, because, you know, I don't know how this movie is doing, like, box office wise, because, you know, the pandemic has changed the way we look at movies and success right now. I don't know if it's gonna do well to warrant a sequel, or maybe it is, I don't know. But if they do, I can definitely see where the improvements could be made. And I hope if they do greenlight a sequel, they can follow through on those improvements. But right now, for this movie, it's a fine kind of introduction to a Mortal Kombat trilogy. It's not the best that it could be, and in a lot of ways I think I had less problems with the 95 Mortal Kombat, which is weird because I would prefer to watch this one. But as far as like I said, I grade off of like technically, like I list off everything that came up during the movie, like, oh, I'm not sure how to feel about this, and I feel like there was less in 95. But I enjoy watching this one more because they embraced more of like the actual like video game moves, the over-the-top gore and CGI violence and action, which is great. It all looks really good too. There are things that I do like about this movie. It could have come really close to being a good video game movie, but unfortunately I think it suffers from a lot of the same problems that not just video game movies do, but just like regular blockbusters do, it feels like these days. Which is kind of a bummer. You think like, you know, it's 2021, we've seen video game adaptations come and go, we've seen even like bigger blockbusters come and go that people have written off like, oh, the characters are weak, I wish the plot was a little more clear, I wish there was more time for stuff to really flesh out, I want an emotional connection too. And I'm not saying they need like every single thing that people require from a blockbuster. This could have literally just been like a dumb fun movie, but to get to that point too, you need to put in the effort to get people to care a bit more too, and it seemed like they kind of did the bare minimum for a lot of it. But overall, I did find some entertainment in this, so even though it has a ton of issues, ones that I can definitely acknowledge and I can say like it doesn't make it a good movie, but I was at least somewhat entertained by this. So despite the low rating I'm about to give it, I did have some fun here. If you're a fan of Mortal Kombat, I think you might find some enjoyment here too. I've heard a lot of like what seems like exaggeratory kind of claims of like this is like unwatchable, it's awful, I don't know what the fuck this even is, and it's like I feel like being a little too harsh. I can understand a lot of the criticism towards it, but honestly, there are things that I genuinely really enjoyed here that I feel like some people are just kind of dismissing for whatever reason. I'm gonna give Mortal Kombat a C-, but despite that low grade, I could honestly see myself watching this again and being like, yeah, this movie has a ton of issues concerning character writing and even some of the dialogue and the editing here and there and the ending. But hey, those action scenes though, those will carry me through. So I could see myself watching this again, but it's not particularly because it's a good movie, it just has good parts in it that are kind of scattered a little bit more frequently in the movie. This is a weird review. But if you've seen Mortal Kombat, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.